Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. Got Fatty here once again for Meow support. That does not work. I'm so sorry. Okay, anyways, I am gonna do a little series about, I'm going back in my past. I'm gonna look at people I dated and analyze it a little bit and just tell stories. I don't know, I guess this is what you do in middle age, is reflect. So we are going back to my journal from 2002. Yeah, that is a Sonic the Hedgehog sticker because I was awesome. So I was 23 years old. I was living in London doing my master's degree in library and information science. So I met this guy at my dad's retirement party. I'm just going to call him Danish. He was one of the most Catholic people I have ever met in my life. And for me to say one of the most Catholic people for a normal, everyday person on the street, they have never met somebody this Catholic, I can guarantee. I grew up Catholic, so I had access to different Catholics, and this was like one of the most conservative. To give you an idea, he would write letters to me. At the top, he put a cross, JMJ. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, every single letter. We would pray before meals. Our dates were going to Chapters across from the Masonville Mall and reading Dante out loud to each other. I would still do that though. That's awesome. I don't know. I love that. And going to a rosary group. We never even held hands or kissed. He kissed me on the cheek once, and I could tell that that was like a big, leap for him. So I felt safe with him. It was a very, very interesting experience. And it was nice. It was very safe. He was very trusting. I never felt like he was never crude. I never felt pressure. He was very intellectual. He had several degrees. Very interesting guy. So those are the things I liked. But things soon started to show the other side, which was completely incompatible with me. For example, he took me to like dinners at his friends' places and stuff like that. And they were also like super duper Catholic, like working for like euthanasia coalitions and stuff like that. And one of the dinners, like, I literally was there for 5 hours, and not once was I like included in the conversation. And they were talking about farming. They were talking about parishes and priests. I didn't know any of these people that they were talking about. And I got up and just like colored with the kids who told me that they like weren't allowed to read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe because C.S. Lewis was Anglican. So this is like how hardcore it was. And I am certainly have certain beliefs, but I was nowhere near this level. At the time, I was exploring my faith. So I was going to Tridentine Mass, which is the Latin Mass, which was done in like a medieval style of Latin, which is where ancient Latin, the C is hard. So you say Kaiser, you say Cicero, but it is like the medieval Latin that softened that. So that's why we have Caesar and Cicero. Cool nerd fact right there. I know you all love this. So I was going to Latin Mass. At Latin Mass, you have to cover your hair. You have to wear a skirt. This guy said that, when he first met me, he thought how scandalous my dress was because it was too short. And it was a dress that, like, literally went to my knees. So while I found it refreshing to have a guy who wasn't acting like a total pig and talking about sexual things in a disrespectful way, it was also just too far on the other side where it felt disrespectful in a different, suffocating way. So yeah, I slowly learned that there was nothing in this relationship. So I'm going to take a sip of my coffee. This is a cup that I cherish greatly, and I've never understood what the hell is going on, what any of that is, but I love it so much. Anyways, so yeah, he was super intellectual. So all our conversations were intellectual. Like, he never asked me how my day was doing. He kind of had no idea what was going on in my life. And what was going on in my life was, I felt such a duality. Like, I've always had this thought in my head that if I am a certain way, that I'm lovable. And I'm too much of a sinner to get the kind of stability and love and acceptance that I want. I'm not this, I don't know. This is how I internalized some of the Catholic teachings that I grew up with. In a way, I don't always know why, because when I would read the mystical saints, they would talk so much about loving yourself and self-acceptance and God loves you and all that. So I'm not, it's a very gray area for me. But I had that in my head that I had to walk the line to be with somebody safe like him. But I like to have fun. I was in London, Ontario. So that meant I was going to the Rose and Crown, the Honest Lawyer, and the Barking Frog, which literally in my journals I call London's like hottest, trendiest place, which is so cringe right now. But that's where I was. And I would go to these places, like some of them I go to with my roommates, some of them with these Catholic girls I knew. So I just felt such confusion over wanting to have fun. And then a lot of the time, like, not wanting to party, but wanting to do wholesome things, like go do Stations of the Cross or the Rosary groups or the Latin Mass or different lectures. That year was World Youth Day, by the way. So I had all that going on. And again, I don't know. I guess I was too young. I still struggle with this today, to have the full confidence to just be like, yeah, that's not for me. Like, I just was trying to figure out a way to be harmonious. And it was wackadoodle. Like, people around me thought it was the weirdest thing they'd ever seen. Like, this guy was huge. He was like socially obnoxious. He would sing super loud in church. Like, it was really unusual, to say the least. Even my own mom was like, dude, like, you're young and impressionable. This is not your match. This guy is way too conservative for you. He wants a farm girl with like long skirts that is not going to be high spirited like you are. Even like I was at my one of my philosophy professor's houses with this guy, and my philosophy professor was like, what's going on here? Are you guys getting married or something? And I was so embarrassed, and my philosophy professor like went into like kind of this philosophical, vague talk about how Italians don't match with basically what he is, and I'm the Italian one over here. So even Catholics were like, WTF to this. But I just, I liked the friendship. I really thought that he was an interesting dude, but I also found him extremely irritating as well. He was just clued out. Like I said, he just never connected with me on any sort of emotional level or day-to-day level, and stuff like that. So I couldn't really relax and be myself, but I also thought that being myself was somehow kind of like immature and a sinner. It's so heartbreaking to go back to these journals, because I was just so hard on myself. It was so obvious, and everybody was telling me it was so obvious. There was one night that I partied with a bunch of lawyers, because my roommate was in law school, so he would have these like law school parties. And one of the lawyers, who also had a philosophy degree, was like, dude, like, you'll outgrow this. Like, are you joking me right now? And I look back, and it was so kind of him to say this, because the situation was quite bizarre, and it was so clear to everybody else. And he just said in such a kind way, you know, don't worry about this. Like, it's not, this is not the guy for you, and you're good, you know, which was profound for somebody of that age to have the insight in the words to communicate that. I just thought that was really cool. So, you know, I'm doing my master's degree. I'm also taking, I'm auditing philosophy classes at the seminary. So I'm really exploring my faith. And this is all that this guy Danish seemed to care about. He just only wanted to talk about philosophy. And it was in a way that was so, it was condescending. It was condescending. So yeah, I got into Steubenville to look into this philosophy master's, and I was like reporting back to Danish about it, and I was also talking about, like, at the time I was doing a research paper on Tolkien, and it was for like a media class, right? So it was, I was exploring Tolkien's philosophy. But anyway, sorry, that's so boring. Okay, so I'm talking about my Tolkien essay, as you would, and he was like, at Steubenville, you will have to come up with your own phenomenological ideas. You can't be relying on other texts. Anyways, like, I'm okay, cool. It's not a done deal that I'm going there, and okay, I'm not even gonna deconstruct this because it's just like, who does stuff like that? Anyways, so that was sort of the temperature. This was like the point when I was like, I can't deal with this. Like, honestly, this person is not really taking interest in who I am, and they only want to talk about philosophical, spiritual things, and they do it in like a weird, condescending way. He also was like inconsistent. Like, it is so awesome to go back to my old journals because I talk all the time about like so-and-so's gonna call me tonight, or I called them. And there's a lot of like, they were gonna call me tonight and didn't. So I don't really remember being this let down by people who said they were going to call and didn't, but it explains why it's such a freaking trigger for me today. So I'm enjoying insights like that, but literally like every other entry, I'm like, Danish was supposed to call me tonight and he didn't. And that blows my mind, how somebody is like super Catholic and super spiritual and super conscientious, what I thought, is like telling me he's gonna call and doesn't. It just was so, it just caused me anxiety, and it was so confusing, and I found it so rude. I have never been that kind of person. When I say I'm gonna call, I call. When I say I want to talk, I make plans. Like, I am not in any sort of understanding about casual people. It is something that I am waving the white flag. I do not understand it. If I said I was going to call and didn't, I literally would feel like I broke my word and broke my integrity and my honor. So I, in some ways, was way more intense than him. So yeah, I have all these like awesome entries about how he said he was going to call and didn't. And by this time, I'm just like, you know, I'm going back to Kitchener. Sometimes on weekends, I'm going to Phil's with my friends and like hanging out with some high school people, some of who kind of make themselves known as a romantic interest, possibly. There was two guys in particular that were like kind of I don't know, just trying to hang on in my life. I don't know what it was. And I'm in London, like just kind of like, you know, my interests are taking me elsewhere. This guy is like in a different province, like what, I don't even know. I think he was in Ottawa, and he's not calling, and when he does call, he's all like bossy and condescending. So that's really when it is just like trailing out. The things that just finally broke it were he was telling me, I was talking about like Harry Potter was all the rage in 2002, and I was talking about the books, and he said how it was so dangerous to read those books, and I shouldn't be reading them because there's like, they're portals to like demonic influence and stuff like that. I still to this day, like, that opinion I think is so dumb. And he was saying it in a way like I was just too stupid to see this. And then he went on this speech about how I'm really impressionable, and I should talk to my spiritual advisor about what books I can and can't read. And I'm talking like at the time I was reading about this Saint Don Bosco, and it scared me because Don Bosco is always like telling his students like, hey, guess what? Someone's gonna die today, so I saw it in a vision, so y'all should go to confession, especially you, Jimmy. Like, it was like really frightening, and it was so different from my spirituality, which is a loving God. And so I've never understood like apocalyptic visions and this level of like just awful visions. Sorry, this is happening right now. This is going on. Yeah, so when I would talk about the books I was reading and the emotional reactions I was having, the intellectual reactions, go to your spiritual advisor. He will come up with a list of what you can read and what you can't because you're too impressionable. So I'm pretty much done at this point. The final nail in the coffin was that we got in some argument about, he just thought it was like so imprudent and corrupting that I lived with guy roommates. And like, dude, like my guy roommates, not like there's nothing fancy going on at all. It's just a financial situation. We're all a bunch of students. There's like 5 of us in a house. It's a thing. It's not a big deal. And my like opinions scared him. And that was pretty much the end of it. There was never anything formal. I did find it very curious to date somebody who was so on the side of like, what would God want me to do? And then he would just kind of be that weird. But whatever, we're all human. We don't know what we're doing some of the times. I get it. Feelings get in the way, and it's weird. And like I had a lot of stuff I didn't know how to deal with, so I'm sure I was ignoring him. Who knows? I don't know. It just trickles off in my journal, and I just start talking about other stuff. And that was also the beauty of youth, is like, you just kind of like, I just got distracted by other things, and then I met other dudes and was doing courses and stuff like that, and life just went on. But it has been really fun to look back, and I hope that it has been slightly entertaining for you guys. I know Fatty is just giving me a lot of support here. So yeah, thank you so much for listening to me journey back into my past to London, Ontario, and I wish you all the best. Lots of love.